Okay, let's unpack this. We've all been there, right? That crucial high-stakes moment where you know exactly what to do. You have the schools, you've done the preparation, you've got the credentials. The hardware is totally top of the line.
Absolutely.
And yet, under pressure, your mind just goes blank, your hands start to shake, and your performance, it just crashes. You choke.
Yeah.
This deep dive is about that fundamental, often invisible gap between what we're capable of and what we actually do under pressure.
And how to close it. We're diving into a body of sources led by the work of people like Eric Potterat, who was the former head psychologist for the Navy SEALs.
Okay, so we're talking about the absolute elite.
The elite of the elite. And their core observation is, well, it's pretty simple. Most people are focused on the wrong problem.
How so?
They spend years stacking up more degrees, building stronger muscles, continually upgrading their physical and technical abilities.
What we're calling the hardware.
Exactly, the hardware. But success under extreme pressure is rarely a hardware issue. It's almost always a failure of the operating system.
Software.
The software that runs that hardware. So we are talking about learning how to literally rewrite the code of excellence itself.
To really grasp the severity of this system failure, we have to start at the ultimate stress test of human performance. I want you to mentally transport yourself to Coronado, California. It's the dead of night, the air is freezing, and the Pacific Ocean is hovering in the mid-50s Fahrenheit.
Just bone-chillingly cold.
Absolutely. We're observing a grueling section of Navy SEAL Hell Week.
I mean, this environment is intentionally designed to shatter every physical and psychological boundary a person possesses. It is the definition of a crucible.
We're focusing specifically on the log PT, the physical training challenge that haunts every SEAL veteran's nightmares.
Oh, yeah.
Imagine several soaked, shivering soldiers who haven't slept properly in days, forced to hoist and carry an absolutely enormous telephone pole.
And this thing weighs 180 kilograms, which is what, around 400 pounds?
A 400-pound log. And this isn't a clean lift and carry on some nice flat ground.
Not at all. They are trudging through soft, sinking sand. The friction, the lack of purchase, I mean, every single step is just a brutal, agonizing battle.
You can just picture the physical agony. Every inch of exposed skin is screaming from the cold, their muscles are seizing up.
And their minds are teetering on the edge of sleep deprivation-induced hallucination. This is pure, unadulterated physical suffering.
So if you were watching that scene, your instinct, my instinct anyway, is simple.
Well, the biggest guy wins.
The biggest guy wins.
Well,
the person who makes it is the one who's genetically blessed, the guy who looks like a Greek statue, right?
yeah.
The most physically jacked bodybuilder in the group.
The stronger the hardware, the longer it should last. That's the logical assumption.
But that's where this gets really interesting.
And this is where the finding becomes genuinely counterintuitive. Dr. Potterat, after observing hundreds of classes go through this agony, he consistently saw the opposite.
The opposite.
He noted that the biggest, strongest, most jacked bodybuilders, the ones with the most impressive physical hardware, were often the very first individuals to quit, to walk over and ring the brass bell.
Wait, hold on. So you're telling me the individuals who are physically optimized for this kind of struggle are the ones who break first?
That's right.
That defies everything we're taught about physical limits. I need to understand what mental barrier causes that collapse.
Well, it forces us to redefine what failure even means in an elite environment. Physical strength is necessary, of course, but it's not the sufficient condition.
It's not enough.
Not even close. Hell Week is specifically engineered to push the body past the point of physical failure. Every human body, no matter how strong, will eventually hit a limit where the muscles just refuse to contract and the pain is overwhelming.
Okay, so if everyone's body fails, who is left standing? Who's the one shivering, maybe scrawny, average-looking guy who just takes one more agonizing step?
It's the person whose internal operating system refuses the quit command. The deciding factor isn't the size of the bicep. It's the quality of the internal dialogue. When the body hits its absolute limit, the brain, that ancient survival mechanism, starts screaming, "Stop, this is dangerous, you need to quit now."
So who, in that precise moment, is issuing the calm, methodical command to take just one more microscopic step forward?
That is the function of mental toughness. That's the quality of your internal software.
Thankfully, most of us will never have to hoist a 400-pound log through freezing sand.
Thankfully.
But the pressure we face in modern life, the financial deadlines, the overwhelming workloads, these interpersonal crises, They cause the same kind of system collapse, just in a different theater.
That's a great way to put it. That moment when the pressure is so intense, it causes a catastrophic breakdown.
Like staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m. with stress, or having your mind go completely blank during a huge presentation.
Or forgetting a critical name in a high-stakes networking situation. That's your system crashing under a heavy load.
And the most frustrating part is that we know we have the ability. We have the degrees, the training, the years of experience. So why do our skills, our hardware, suddenly fail us?
Let's use the analogy to define it clearly. Hardware is anything objective and measurable.
Yeah.
Your IQ, your advanced degrees, your certifications, physical fitness.
All the stuff on your resume.
Exactly. We spend our entire lives and our whole economy really obsessed with upgrading this hardware. We pay for the executive coaching, we run the marathons.
We take on massive student loan debt.
Okay.
Conceptually, we're an iPhone 15 Pro Max, top-tier processor, 100-megapixel camera, massive storage. The raw capability is there.
It's undeniable, but the analogy highlights the deep flaw in how we approach self-improvement. We never update the operating system,
The essential code that manages all those resources.
which is the software. It's our mindset.
So if you take a cutting-edge supercomputer, your phenomenal hardware,
Yeah.
and you try to run it on Windows 95, what happens?
Oh, it lags on startup, and the moment you try to run a heavy program, a critical negotiation, a massive project deadline.
The system crashes. The blue screen of death.
Exactly. We choke under pressure not due to a lack of ability, which would be a hardware problem, but because our mental OS has failed.
Yeah.
It just doesn't know how to allocate resources efficiently when cortisol is flooding the system.
So the goal of what we're talking about, this learned excellence, isn't about getting a faster chip.
No, it's the necessary intentional system update that allows you to access your full hardware capability, even when the metaphorical world is burning down around you, just like those SEAL candidates.
So if we accept that we need a software update, the very first step has to be a comprehensive virus scan.
Mm-hmm.
We need to identify and get rid of the insidious programs that clog our mental CPU and divert all that essential cognitive power.
And the most destructive of these viruses is what's called the identity trap.
This virus is not only destructive, it's potentially fatal.
It is, and the clearest illustration comes from the world of elite extreme sports. We're going to detail the story of Red Bull cliff diver David Colturi.
Okay, let's appreciate the danger here first. David Colturi jumps from a height of 27 meters.
Which is the equivalent of an 8-story building.
An 8-story building. And when he hits the water, he's moving at over 85 kilometers per hour, which is about 50 mph.
At that speed, the surface tension of the water makes it, it's functionally identical to hitting concrete. A slight miscalculation means shattered bones, organ damage.
Or a spinal injury. Life-changing stuff.
And David had long since conquered that physiological fear. His hardware was perfectly optimized for the leap. But in 2018, during a promotional stunt over Lake Lucerne in Switzerland, his system encountered a psychological failure that nearly cost him his life.
So on his first jump, his entry was technically imperfect.
Now, to an audience watching online, it was breathtaking. But for David, the perfectionist, his inner monologue was immediately hijacked.
What's crucial here is where his focus went, right?
Exactly. His brain wasn't focused on correcting the technique or ensuring a smooth execution for the next dive. It was focused entirely on external validation.
The voice was screaming.
That wasn't perfect enough for Instagram. I need to wow the sponsors to keep this gig. The crowd needs louder screams. He was jumping to maintain an external label. The indestructible daredevil.
That desire for applause, that desperate need to maintain the persona, it led to a completely irrational decision.
He ignored his physical exhaustion, all the subtle signals from his body, and requested the paraglider pilot take him even higher for an immediate second jump.
Which is just a recipe for disaster.
A total recipe for disaster. Because of the impatience, the altitude change, the fatigue he was consciously ignoring, his rhythm was profoundly off.
So when he hit the water?
He wasn't perfectly vertical. The impact slammed into his side. He described it as feeling like a Mack truck hitting him at speed.
And here's the immense psychological burden of maintaining that persona. Relying purely on adrenaline and instinct, he somehow manages to swim to the shore.
And what does he do the moment his feet hit the land?
He pauses, takes a deep breath, and he waves and smiles at the crowd.
Unbelievable. He was literally dying internally. But the software prioritizing the identity, the tough guy label, it overrode the biological survival instinct.
Hours later, he collapsed.
They rushed him to the hospital, discovering a severely ruptured spleen requiring emergency surgery. He He was steps away from death.
So when they did the psychological autopsy, it was just damning.
Completely. The jump wasn't a technical error, it was an identity misalignment. He was jumping for the likes, for the titles, for the sponsors, not for the pure love of the dive itself.
And this is the universal conclusion, isn't it? If your self-worth is built entirely on unstable external validation,
On applause, titles, labels, hitting quarterly KPIs, whatever it is.
your mental CPU gets clogged with one crippling emotion.
Fear.
Fear of being ridiculed, fear of being exposed as a fraud, fear of not being spectacular next time. That fear generates suffocating performance anxiety, which diverts essential cognitive resources away from the task itself, and that leads to the system crash. You can't focus on the task if you're constantly worrying about the outcome's effect on your perceived status.
You just can't.
The profound contrast to Colturi's self-destructive drive is found in the story of the Korean Go master, Cho Han-yun, known as the Go Emperor.
Yes. Cho was the undisputed master of the ancient, incredibly complex strategy game of Go. He was the reigning champion. That was his identity.
Until his student, Lee Chang-ho, a quiet, methodical prodigy, began systematically surpassing him.
Stripping him of his titles one by one over several devastating years. I mean, this was public, deep humiliation for the master.
His entire identity was wrapped up in that title, the Go Emperor. Every loss wasn't just a loss in a game. It was a death of who he believed he was, a betrayal of his self-concept.
The agony was immense because his drive was fear-based. Fear of losing the title, fear of losing his status.
But then, the final most prestigious title was gone. And in that void, something unexpected, something revolutionary happened.
Joe felt a profound sense of relief.
That is the moment of the system reboot, right there. How can the loss of everything you defined yourself by possibly bring relief?
Because the fear was gone. He had his epiphany. When I had the titles, I was playing for the titles. I was afraid to lose. Now that they are gone, I realized I still want to play. I play for the love of Go.
Wow. So relief became the new fuel, replacing the fear.
Exactly. Once he switched his core drive from the defensive, fear-based goal, I must not lose this label, to the intrinsic, purpose-based goal, I love this game, I want to play it well, his career actually saw a substantial revitalization.
He had reclaimed the process from the persona.
Perfectly said. We aren't all Go masters or cliff divers, but we're just as susceptible to being hijacked by labels. I am the top sales performer, I am the indispensable manager, I am the one who never makes mistakes.
And when that label is threatened, we just crumble. So we need practical tools to reverse engineer our core identity and find that true purpose.
The first tool, which is, well, it's a little morbid, but it's incredibly effective, is the funeral test.
Okay, let's walk through this. This is about reverse engineering our core values.
Right. It forces you to leapfrog all your immediate anxieties. Step out of your current emotional state, the worry about this presentation, that quarterly report, this difficult client email. Fast forward 50 years to the end of your life.
And you imagine you are at your funeral. What do you want your closest friends, family, and colleagues to say about you?
Would you prefer them to say, she was a corporate grinder who hit all her KPIs every quarter, who was rich but never had time for us, and always worried about what the internet thought of her?
Or would you prefer, he was genuine and brave. Maybe he wasn't a billionaire, but he was always present when we needed him. He handled setbacks with grace, and he truly loved his life.
The test is so potent, particularly for high achievers who are obsessed with daily performance metrics, because it forces you to distinguish between temporary status markers,
KPIs, titles, awards,
and enduring character traits, bravery, integrity, humor. If your current anxieties, like fearing a flubbed line in a speech or worrying about a minor typo, are focused on things no one would ever mention at your funeral,
that's your red flag.
that is your immediate, definitive red flag. Your focus is wrong. You're playing for the applause, not for the purpose.
And tool 2 is vital because we're often blind to our own best traits, aren't we? This is trusted feedback. We need an objective external mirror.
Absolutely. We tend to see ourselves through the lens of our current performance anxieties. We just focus on our weaknesses. So the selection process for this mirror is strict.
What are the criteria?
You need to identify 3 to 5 people who meet 3 non-negotiable criteria. First, they have to be genuine. They truly want the best for you, not just fair-weather sycophants.
Right. Second, they must be long-term. People who have seen you at your very best and your absolute worst and still remained in your corner.
And third, they have to be diverse. Their values should overlap with yours, but they shouldn't be identical echo chambers. They need to challenge your assumptions a bit.
Okay, so once you have those people, what do you ask them?
The question is disarmingly simple. What do you think is my core trait or belief? At what moment did you feel this is the real Himmer?
And the example of Eric Potterat doing this himself is a perfect illustration of how we misidentify our own power.
It's incredible. As a Navy SEAL psychologist, he just assumed his core identity was discipline and focus. He saw himself as this stoic, analytical guide.
But that wasn't the feedback he got.
Not at all. The overwhelming, consistent feedback from his trusted circle was humor. His friends told him, "You always crack an appropriate joke to break the tension when everyone else is about to snap. That's your signature move. That's your superpower."
That is a profound insight. He realized humor wasn't a weakness or a distraction from his job.
It was his core weapon against the high-pressure environment he operated in. And once he accepted that and stopped trying to force himself into this rigid, stoic persona, he became exponentially more effective.
So the first step to excellence isn't adding new skills, but simply embracing and reclaiming your true identity.
That's it.
Reclaiming your identity frees up the CPU from that crippling fear of external judgment. So now that the system is clean, what is the most powerful new operating instruction we can install?
Well, we need to upgrade the core algorithm for dealing with struggle. And that brings us to the astonishing physical power of belief.
We need to see that belief isn't just some soft, fuzzy concept of positive thinking.
No, it is a genuine, quantifiable physiological force that can unlock physical and cognitive reserves that are otherwise totally inaccessible. The hard data from sports science labs is just incredible.
So researchers brought in groups of elite athletes, cyclists, weightlifters, all already operating at the peak of human performance.
Right. And they administered what they claimed was a cutting-edge performance enhancer. The researchers looked the athletes in the eye and affirmed that this pill would significantly boost their endurance, their explosive power, and their recovery time.
So the athletes took the pill, they went through rigorous testing, and the results.
The results were truly staggering. Most subjects saw consistent performance gains between 1 and 5%, which, at an elite level, is massive. But what's really shocking is that some individuals saw improvements of up to 50%.
50%.
50% in certain metrics.
And the kicker, the revelation that proves the whole point.
It was a sugar pill, a completely inert, harmless substance, zero active ingredients whatsoever.
That's the placebo effect in its purest form, but viewed through the lens of performance. What does that tell us?
It tells us that when the brain truly believes it is stronger or faster or more resilient, it doesn't wait for permission. It immediately sends the corresponding chemical signals to match that belief.
It's literally changing your body's chemistry based on a thought.
It alters neurotransmitter levels, decreases perceived pain, and forces the body to tap into hidden survival-grade reserves. The physical body, our hardware, follows the instructions of the mental map, the software.
And crucially, the reverse is equally powerful, the nocebo effect.
Yes. If you approach a massive challenge, say a critical presentation or a complex negotiation, truly believing deep down, I can't handle this, or I'm going to fail.
That belief becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
It does. Your brain releases cortisol, constricts blood flow to your prefrontal cortex, and you literally make yourself cognitively and physically weaker before the challenge even begins.
So since belief is this physiological lever we can pull, the question becomes, what software algorithm should we install to govern our response to difficulty?
And this brings us to the foundational work of Carol Dweck and the two core algorithms of the brain: fixed versus growth mindset.
Okay, the fixed mindset. This operates on the belief that core talent, intelligence, and ability are innate and set in stone, like a biological destiny.
The brain is perceived as concrete. The inner monologue defaults to fatalism. I'm just not a math person, or I am naturally clumsy.
And this algorithm processes failure in a highly toxic way, doesn't it?
Extremely. Failure is viewed not as an event, but as a definitive verdict. I failed, therefore I am a failure. And the tragic trap here is that people who have been labeled as gifted often develop the most fragile, fixed mindsets.
Why is that?
They become terrified of taking risks, of trying something new or difficult, because they're afraid of proving that they aren't smart anymore. Their entire identity rests on appearing competent, not on learning.
So how does someone who's been rewarded their whole life for being gifted actually overcome that deep-seated fear of risk? Is the switch to a growth mindset just a decision, or is it a process?
It is absolutely a process, and it begins with language. The growth mindset views the brain and talent like a muscle. It can be developed, it can be strengthened, and struggle is not a sign of deficiency.
It's the necessary mechanism for growth.
It's the reps. The inner monologue undergoes a fundamental shift. Instead of the crushing, "I can't do this," it's replaced by the liberating phrase, "I'm not good at this yet."
I love that. For the growth mindset, failure isn't a verdict, it's just data.
It's data, it asks. What can I learn? How can I adjust? They welcome the struggle because struggle is the physical feeling of the brain forging new, stronger neural connections.
There was a case study of a helicopter pilot, Katie, right?
Yes, pilot Katie. She was training for complex maritime cargo operations. During a critical flight simulation, she makes a mistake, and the heavy cargo drops into the ocean.
And the pressure of that perceived failure immediately pushes her into a fixed mindset spiral.
Her inner dialogue just becomes toxic, it sounds like. "I'm clumsy. I am fundamentally not cut out for this complex work. I've let my squad down."
And that self-flagellation drains her cognitive resources, doesn't it?
It does. It diverts blood flow and attention away from the controls, essentially guaranteeing that her next attempts will be worse because her focus is on self-pity, not problem-solving.
So she needed that software reboot.
Desperately. The shift was subtle but profound. She stopped viewing the failure as a statement about who she was, "I am a failure," and started viewing it as objective feedback on what happened.
This technique didn't work under these specific parameters.
Right. She deliberately adopted the Thomas Edison approach. Instead of beating herself up, she told herself, "Good. I found one way that doesn't work under this specific wind speed and weight distribution. I am now one step closer to the solution."
And when Katie switched her focus from proving herself to improving herself,
The paralyzing, suffocating anxiety just vanished. Her precision returned instantly. That is the core algorithm upgrade. Redefining struggle as information.
so we've secured our identity, we've upgraded our core belief system to see struggle as data, but we still need an immediate, practical tool for navigating the white-hot storm when intense anxiety hits. What's the fundamental root of that crippling panic that causes the system to seize up?
Eric Potterat defines anxiety in a brilliantly concise way that just strips away all the psychological jargon. Anxiety is trying to control things you cannot control.
I think we all recognize that brain freeze moment. Under extreme pressure, the brain tries to process hundreds of variables simultaneously, particularly the uncontrollable ones.
And that leads to an immediate cognitive overload. The brain is spinning on three primary categories of uncontrollable variables. External opinion, does the audience like me? The future, if I fail this, I'll never get promoted. And the past, why did I say that stupid thing 5 minutes ago?
Attempting to process those variables, which are static and untouchable, that causes the immediate cognitive crash.
Every time.
To regain command in these moments, elite performers use a simple, actionable tool that cuts through that complexity instantly. The circle of control.
Yes. Let's walk through the full exercise now so you can use this immediately.
Okay, so imagine you have a napkin in front of you. You draw a circle on it.
This is what professional athletes often do in the locker room right before the championship game. The circle divides your reality into two halves. Inside the circle is what I can control, and outside is what I cannot.
Let's start with the things that must be consciously, deliberately placed. Outside the circle, the things you must accept and ignore if you want to perform.
Right. Outside the circle goes the chaotic environment. The referee's bad call, the weather, your opponent's performance, the crowd's reaction.
Whether they're booing or cheering.
Right. And crucially, we have to place the past, the mistake that just happened, and the future, the final outcome outside the circle. They're static. They are unchangeable in this exact moment.
Relinquishing the delusion of controlling the outcome is the first step toward peace. So what goes inside the circle?
These are the small, immediate levers you can actually pull right now. Inside the circle goes my breathing rhythm, my focus on the current task, my preparation, which is already done and can be trusted.
My immediate reaction to a mistake. Do I sulk or do I immediately reset?
Yes. And the most important lever, the next play. This is the do your job mentality. All I can control is the step I am taking right now, the word I am saying next.
So how do we use this tool actively when the panic hits, when the heart is racing?
You stop, you pause, and you force yourself to ask that vital question. Is the thing I'm worrying about inside or outside the circle?
And if the answer is outside, will the boss be angry at this report? Will the flight be delayed?
You must immediately consciously redirect your full attention to something inside. Is my data accurate? Is my voice steady? You are physically forcing your cognitive resources away from the chaos and back onto the process.
The power of focusing on the process is perfectly illustrated by the story of the basketball player Ming.
Right. A high-profile player often tasked with game-winning free throws in the final seconds. In those clutch moments, Ming would often choke.
Why?
Because his focus was entirely outside the circle, on the score, on the time left, and on making the shot, which is the uncontrollable result. That focus led to paralysis and muscle tension.
So the coaching change was simple but profound. They told him to focus entirely on the process, something controllable, inside the circle.
The specific instruction was, focus only on the flick of the wrist.
That's that one small thing.
Yeah. The panic subsided instantly. Why? Because the flick of the wrist is a small, controllable, immediate action. It's impossible to worry about the uncontrollable outcome if your entire attention is dedicated to that specific, controlled physical motion.
He stopped focusing on the result and dedicated himself solely to the step.
And the ball went in. His clutch performance soared. That is the art of control.
Yeah.
You don't worry about the entire journey. You just focus on steering the ship through the next wave.
We've armed ourselves with cognitive tools for identity, belief, and control. But what happens when the pressure is so overwhelming that the rational prefrontal cortex is simply shut off by a rush of hormones?
That's the full amygdala hijack.
And this is ancient evolutionary code firing. The amygdala is the brain's alarm bell, and it evolved to detect
Saber-toothed tigers. When it detects a threat, it immediately overrides the prefrontal cortex, the center of logic, planning, and long-term thinking. Blood is instantly diverted from the brain to the large limb muscles, preparing for fight, flight, or freeze.
And in the modern world, the tigers are emails, public speaking, or a difficult conversation. And dropping your IQ to 0 in a critical meeting because your body is preparing to physically fight the PowerPoint slides is not ideal.
It's fatal to modern performance.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. The rational center of the brain is offline. We need a physical, immediate way to override that ancient alarm system.
And Navy SEALs stay calm under fire, not because they are inherently fearless robots,
but because they use biohacks physical inputs to manually force the body's alarm system, the sympathetic nervous system, back into the green.
The first, and arguably the most powerful immediate intervention, is the SEAL Tactical Breathing Protocol, or box breathing.
The goal is to manually override that redlining fight-or-flight system. Mental affirmations, be calm, they just fail when the panic is surging. You need a physical input.
Let's explain the underlying mechanism first. Why does breath work?
The secret lies in the vagus nerve. Think of this nerve as the information superhighway connecting your brainstem to all your major organs, including your heart and your diaphragm. When you breathe slowly and deliberately, especially engaging the diaphragm, you physically stimulate the vagus nerve.
And stimulating the vagus nerve is the master switch for
the parasympathetic nervous system, or the rest and digest mode. By forcing a slow, rhythmic pattern, you send a physical chemical signal to the brain that says, despite what the situation looks like, we are safe. This is biological engineering.
Okay, let's walk through the exact steps of the 4-4-4-4 protocol so you can practice this immediately.
Step 1. Inhale, 4 seconds. Deep through the nose. Focus on filling your belly, making sure the diaphragm is engaged. If only your chest is moving, you're not engaging the vagus nerve fully.
Step 2. Hold 4 seconds. Keep that air in. This initial pause starts to alter the internal state.
Step 3. Exhale, 4 seconds. Slowly, deliberately, out through the mouth. Empty the lungs completely. This is where you release physical tension.
And step 4. Hold 4 seconds. Stay empty. This second pause is what really forces the system back into that parasympathetic state.
The entire cycle takes exactly 16 seconds. If you repeat this pattern just 3 times, you have spent 48 seconds consciously engineering your nervous system. In that time, you can lower your heart rate, decrease cortisol levels, and bring your rational prefrontal cortex back online.
It's the fastest, most effective neurological reset available.
It really is.
The second weapon is about optimizing preparation. We need to upgrade how we rehearse. Amateurs simply daydream about a positive outcome.
Professionals use kinesthetic motor imagery, or KMI. This is where we leverage the incredible power of neuroplasticity. The neuroscience is firm. When you vividly imagine performing a complex action, the brain fires the exact same neural pathways as when you actually do it.
So for the brain, a high-fidelity mental simulation is functionally indistinguishable from reality.
Right. It's why you see F1 drivers sitting in the garage with their eyes closed, their hands moving as if shifting gears. By the time they race, their mind already tags the circuit as familiar, not threat. They've already completed the run successfully 10 times in their head.
But standard visualization is usually too limited. To achieve that powerful Hollywood-level rehearsal, we have to engage the entire sensory system.
Using the 7-point model for rehearsal, so let's walk through it using the scenario of a high-stakes job interview.
Okay.
First, visual. Visualize the room, the bright lights, the color of the table, see the faces of the people interviewing you.
Second, auditory. What does the room sound like? Is there an AC hum, an echo? What does your own confident voice sound like in that space?
Third, tactile. Feel the smooth wood of the table, the weight of the pen in your hand, the texture of your professional clothes.
Fourth, olfactory and gustatory smell and taste. Can you smell the faint scent of coffee? Is your mouth slightly dry from nervousness?
Fifth, and this is the crucial step amateurs miss, emotional rehearsal. Don't just visualize success. Honestly rehearse the initial anxiety, feel your heart racing a bit, and then visualize yourself pausing, doing 3 cycles of Dox breathing, and feeling the calm wash over you as you respond confidently.
So you feel the fear, and then you feel yourself overcoming it in the simulation.
Exactly. Sixth, perspective. Don't just see the audience, visualize yourself from the back of the room looking confident, then shift back to your own point of view.
And finally, kinesthetic.
Feel your body moving. Feel the weight shift as you lean forward to emphasize a point. Do this holistic rehearsal consistently. When you enter that actual high-stakes environment, it's no longer a threat. It's just a familiar path you've walked many times.
Visualization is for preparation. But what about managing errors in real time? What happens when you make a mistake mid-presentation? That brings us to the black box.
Right. The black box is a mental tool for immediate error isolation. You mentally visualize a heavy, indestructible storage container. When a negative thought or error occurs, a mistake in your data, a clumsy sentence, you mentally shove it in, slam the lid, and lock it tight.
And you tell yourself, clearly and firmly, I'll deal with you later.
That thought is contained, and your 100% focus is immediately redirected back to the next play, that small, controllable action in your circle of control.
But the corollary, the reset box, is non-negotiable for true learning, isn't it?
It is. After the mission is over, after the presentation, after the negotiation, you must open the box.
Why is that second step so psychologically necessary? Why can't we just leave the mistake locked away forever?
Because if you just leave it locked in there, your subconscious brain tags that memory not as data, but as acute emotional pain. And that emotional pain is what fuels the amygdala hijack for your next presentation. It just compounds over time.
So in the reset box, you unpack the mistake, analyze it objectively.
What can I learn? What data should I feed into my next visualization? And then, most importantly, you empty the box completely before you go to bed.
Extract the lesson, ditch the emotion.
Exactly. You do not carry that emotional baggage, that residue of regret, into your sleep. It's how you recover and prevent the negative feedback loops that destroy confidence.
Our final section addresses what many high achievers consider a failure of character. Rest. We have to challenge the core lie of modern professional culture, the hustle mentality. We live in a world where saying, I worked 16 hours yesterday and only slept 4, is worn like a perverse badge of honor.
And yet, this mentality is actively counterproductive to excellence. It ignores the fundamental law of adaptation and growth. The formula is not just stress, it is stress plus rest stressed.
We get this intuitively with physical training. Your muscles don't actually grow while you're breaking them down in the gym.
They grow when you're sleeping, when you're feeding them, when you're recovering. The brain is the master muscle, and it's absolutely no different.
Performance is about adaptation, and adaptation happens when the system is quiet.
During sleep and intentional rest, the brain prunes unnecessary connections, it integrates new learning, and it repairs itself chemically. If you constantly stress the system without allowing time for integration and repair, you don't grow. You just exhaust the system until it collapses into burnout.
One of the biggest systemic risks high achievers run is placing all their stress and all their identity on a single pillar, usually the work career pillar.
Right. The analogy is your life as a house supported by 6 distinct essential pillars. If you rely on only one, say, work, that pillar has to be massive to hold up the entire structure. But if that single pillar cracks due to a recession, a job loss, a professional failure,
the entire house immediately collapses.
Which is why we see high-powered workaholics fall completely apart after retirement or a professional setback.
So what are these 6 pillars that we have to balance to create a resilient foundation?
We need to dedicate intentional time and energy to balancing all 6. 1. Work career. 2. Relationships, your partner, family, real friends. 3. Health, sleep, diet, exercise.
4. Spirituality.
Which just means a sense of purpose beyond yourself. It could be meditation, altruism, a cause, not necessarily religious. 5. Hobbies. Things you do purely for fun with no expectation of monetization. And 6. Legacy. Giving back, mentoring.
Okay, but let's address the friction point. If I'm running a massive company and my work pillar is demanding 60 hours a week, how do I find time and energy for the health and hobbies pillars, which often look like toothpicks?
The answer is that you have to view energy management as your primary job, not a secondary luxury. A 60-hour work week is actually counterproductive if the other pillars are so weak that your physical system starts crashing. Diversification is about ensuring that if the work pillar faces a tremor, the relationships and health pillars are strong enough to carry the load and prevent total self-collapse.
So that 1 hour on a hobby isn't time lost from work.
It's capacity gained through recovery.
And if we accept that formula, stress plus rest equals growth, we have to be intentional about our rest. Most people engage in passive recovery.
They flop on the couch, grab their phone, and start doom scrolling through social media, which is the opposite of genuine recovery. You're overwhelming your system, stressing your optic nerves, and draining your dopamine system further.
So pros use active recovery.
Deliberately changing the mental state and input. There are 3 powerful categories here. First, the most accessible, micro-rest, the 15-minute nature walk.
The instruction is specific. Leave the phone, leave the podcast, leave the screens, just step outside long enough to see some green.
This green viewing physically and chemically lowers cortisol. It's a literal neurological reset that costs nothing.
Second, macro rest, creating the white space. And this is often the hardest for high achievers who equate stillness with laziness.
Right. Can you carve out 1 full day or even 2 weeks for absolute stillness? No emails, no deadlines. That void of input is precisely where creativity and complex solutions are actually born.
And finally, novelty, trying something new.
Go to a restaurant you've never tried. Take a pottery class. Novel experiences force the brain out of its established rut. This actively builds neuroplasticity. It keeps the system adaptable and prevents stagnation.
So our deep dive is concluding, and we've traversed the journey from the frozen sands of Coronado to the fatal cliffs of Switzerland.
And we've learned that failure is not a lack of hardware, but a failure of the mental operating system. We have armed ourselves with tools from drawing a simple circle to rebooting our physiology with breath.
And the core secret of elite performance is this. Successful people are not fearless. They're just the people who have intentionally built the capacity to dance with fear.
Mental toughness isn't an innate gift. It's a muscle built rep by rep through intentional practice and application of these tools.
The ultimate message here is that mindset is a skill, and because it is a skill, it can be practiced, measured, and radically improved. We have to stop accepting the idea that we are victims of our own panic or stress.
We are the captains of our own ship. But knowing all of this isn't the same as doing it. If you walk away from this deep dive and change nothing, it was just interesting intellectual entertainment.
We want this knowledge to be applied to your life. So here is the final, non-negotiable challenge. Pick one small tool we discussed today to implement immediately. Not next week, but today.
Maybe before your next stressful Zoom call, you pause, find a quiet space, and commit to 3 intentional cycles of the box breathing, 4-4-4-4, manually forcing your system into rest and digest mode.
Or when anxiety hits you later today, don't try to analyze the entire chaotic problem. Just pull out a piece of paper, draw the circle of control, and force your attention relentlessly onto the single thing you can control right now.
Or maybe this weekend you commit to that 15-minute tech-free walk, allowing yourself that essential micro-rest and seeing the green that lowers your physiological stress.
True excellence is not about beating others or securing a label. It is about building the internal capacity to navigate any storm. It's about captaining the ship named self, making sure it stays pointed toward the destination you chose, not the one dictated by external validation, fear, or an outdated operating system.
Let's evolve intentionally.